My name is Haley Bennett, and I was 29 the night my wedding died in a pile of still warm laundry. I was in our tiny living room, half watching some forgettable reality show, half folding jeans that still smelled like Jason's cologne. It was one of those quiet evenings where nothing dramatic is supposed to happen. Dull, domestic, safe. His phone slipped out of the back pocket of his jeans and hit the hardwood with a crack that made me wince. Damn, I muttered, picking it up. The screen was spiderwebbed, but still lit. A notification glowed bright across the lock screen. A little banner that shouldn't have meant anything and somehow meant everything. Miss your smile. Thursday can't come soon enough. D. My hands went cold. D. Not a random coworker, not a group chat. Diana. The woman he'd dated for 5 years before me. The woman who was just an old friend now. Completely platonic. Full closure, I promise. My thumb hovered over the screen. Don't. Respect his privacy. Put it down. Be the cool, trusting fiancé. Another thought slid in right behind it, dark and quiet. If everything is so innocent, why is she sending hearts and missing his smile? I pressed my thumb to the screen. The phone unlocked. I wish I could say I hesitated longer, that I wrestled with the morality of it, but the truth is my stomach already knew what my brain didn't want to say out loud. I opened their messages. The thread was long. Weeks of conversation. My fingers scrolled almost on autopilot while my eyes tried to keep up. Diana. Thinking about you lately. Remember that night at the lake house? Jason. Yeah, you always understood me better than anyone. Diana. Sometimes I wonder what could have been if life hadn't gotten in the way. Jason. We had something special. Diana. We still do. It never really went away, did it? Jason. No, it didn't. I felt the room tilt. The TV went silent in my ears. The only sound was the faint hum of the fridge and the blood rushing in my head. They didn't say they'd kissed. They didn't say they'd slept together. There were no naked photos or hotel receipts. Nothing concrete. Just memories, what ifs, and a mutual acknowledgement that whatever they'd had never really ended. The kind of thing you can't print on a legal form, but still counts as cheating in every part of your body that matters. I scrolled further. Plans. Can't wait for Thursday. Lunch again? Maybe somewhere quieter. Miss this. Miss you. My thumb stopped. I inhaled once, twice, like I could breathe myself back into the girl who hadn't seen any of this. Then I did something that still surprises me. I locked the phone. I put it back in his jeans pocket, and I finished folding the laundry. Not because I didn't care, because I cared so much, I knew that if I confronted him right then, raw and shaking, he'd twist it until I was the problem. I'd seen him do it with little things. I was about to find out how he did it with big ones. As I stacked his shirts, another memory slid in, uninvited. 6 months earlier, I was sitting at this same couch when my phone buzzed with a name I hadn't seen in years. Mark, my ex-boyfriend. We'd dated for 2 years in our mid-20s. No huge betrayal, no screaming matches. He took a job across the country. We tried distance. It didn't work. We broke up with sad smiles and promises to keep in touch that never really stuck. His message was simple. Hey, I just moved back to the city. Would love to grab coffee and catch up sometime if you're up for it. No pressure. I remember smiling, genuinely happy for him. I also remember doing the right thing. I showed Jason. Look who texted, I'd said, leaning over with my phone. His reaction was immediate. Nuclear. Absolutely not. I blinked. What? You're not meeting up with him. Jason, he's just an old friend. We ended things fine. There was no drama. He's your ex, Jason said, like the word itself was filthy. Ex means past. Past means you don't talk to them. That seems extreme, I tried to joke. It's called having boundaries, he'd snapped. If you love me, you won't see him. I remember the way my heart sank, the way my mind raced to find compromise, the way I folded in on myself like a paper crane. So I texted Mark back. Hey, it's really good to hear from you, but my boyfriend isn't comfortable with us catching up. I hope you understand. He replied with a simple, totally get it. Wishing you all the best, Haley. And that was that. One more door quietly shut in the name of security. A week later, Jason came home glowing. Guess who I ran into today, he'd said, dropping his keys in the bowl by the door. I was chopping vegetables, still in my scrubs. Who? Diana. I froze. Your ex? I asked carefully. The one you dated for 5 years? He laughed like I was being ridiculous. Relax, we just grabbed lunch. It was nice catching up. We're adults, Haley. It's totally fine. We're just friends now. Very mature about it. Jason, I said slowly, you lost your mind when Mark asked to grab coffee. That's different. How? Because your ex clearly still has feelings for you, he said without hesitation. I could tell from the way you talked about him. Mine and I have complete closure. It's platonic. I'd stared at him, trying to decide if I was overreacting or being manipulated. So I can't see my ex, I'd said, but you can see yours. If you trusted me, this wouldn't be an issue, he'd replied. And that was the conversation that built the little crack in our foundation. Tonight, standing over his jeans with his cracked phone in my hand, I realized that crack had been widening this whole time. I'd just been too in love to look down. The door opened. Hey, babe, Jason called. You still up? I slid the folded jeans onto the couch like nothing was wrong. Yeah, I said, not trusting my voice to do anything else. Laundry's done. He walked in, loosening his tie, smelling like a cologne I didn't recognize. Not his usual crisp citrus, something heavier, muskier, someone else's maybe. He leaned down and kissed my cheek. You're the best. Work dinners are so draining. I bet, I said. He flopped onto the couch, grabbed the remote, and started scrolling through Netflix like we were just any couple, on any night, in any city. It took everything in me not to scream. Instead, I watched him out of the corner of my eye. The relaxed posture, the easy smile, the way his phone never left his hand when it buzzed, thumbs moving quickly, screen tilted away from me. Who are you texting? I asked finally. He didn't look up. Just a friend. Which friend? He exhaled sharply. Wow, why the interrogation? I stared at the TV, not seeing anything. I'm just asking, I said quietly. If you must know, he muttered. I ran into Diana again. We're grabbing lunch on Thursday. Of course you are, I thought. Cool, I said, my voice too steady. I'm getting coffee with Mark tomorrow. His whole body stiffened. Excuse me? I turned my head slowly. My ex, Mark. He's back in town. He asked if I wanted to grab coffee near my office. I said yes. Absolutely not, Jason snapped. He sat up, eyes blazing. You're not going. I already agreed, I said. Besides, we've established that exes can be just friends now, right? Very mature about it. That's not funny, Haley. I'm not joking. That's different, he said again, the words sharp now. I laughed once, not because it was funny, but because it was the only sound that wasn't a scream. Stop saying that, I replied. Explain how. He stood, pacing. 'Cause she and I have closure. We've moved past the romantic stuff. You and Mark, that's fresh. That's dangerous. We broke up 3 years ago, I reminded him. You and Diana dated for 5. That's not the point. What is the point, Jason? I asked. That you get to have emotional support from your ex, but I don't? That your comfort matters and mine doesn't? His jaw clenched. I cannot believe you're doing this after everything I told you about boundaries and respect. Respect goes both ways, I said quietly. He grabbed his keys from the bowl, fingers shaking. I'm going to my mom's, he said. I need space to think about whether I can marry someone this controlling and jealous. He slammed the door. A picture fell off the wall. I stared at the spot where he'd been, the echo of his words still hanging in the air. Controlling, jealous. Behind me, his jeans sat folded on the couch, his cracked phone screen dark and innocent. My own phone buzzed an hour later. Caller ID, Linda, Jason's mom. I already knew how this conversation would go. I answered anyway. Haley, she said without preamble, her voice tight with indignation. What did you do to my son? I looked at the empty doorway and realized something I hadn't wanted to admit. I hadn't done anything to her son. He'd done this to us. Hi, Linda, I said softly. Do you want the truth, or do you just want your version of it? Don't give me attitude, young lady, Linda snapped. You've been manipulating Jason for months, and now he's here, devastated, saying you're threatening to cheat on him with your ex. Is that what engagement means to you? I closed my eyes. There it was, his version. What exactly did he tell you? I asked. That you blindsided him, she said, voice rising. Announced you're running off to have coffee with some old boyfriend, rubbing it in his face just to hurt him. After everything my son has done for you. I stared at the wall. Did he also mention, I said slowly, that he's been having lunch with his ex for months? That she sends him hearts and miss your smile texts? That they talk about what could have been and how their feelings never really went away? Silence. He said you're twisting everything, she said eventually. You're insecure. You read innocent messages and make them dirty because you don't trust him. You even went through his phone. It fell out of his jeans when I was doing his laundry, I replied. The message was on the lock screen. I didn't have to go through anything to read miss your smile and a heart. That's still a violation of his privacy, she shot back. Linda, I said, tired, if your husband had messages like that with his ex, would you call it innocent? Another small silence. I imagined her mouth pinched tight, eyes narrowed, defending her son to the death. My husband is not the issue, she said stiffly. Jason is allowed to have female friends. So am I said. But when my ex asked to get coffee, Jason lost his mind. He forbade it, said if I loved him, I wouldn't go. I respected that. I cut contact. And now he spends lunches reminiscing about romantic nights with his ex while telling me I'm controlling for wanting the same freedom. That's not the same thing, she snapped. I almost laughed. Of course it wasn't. Of course it's not, I repeated quietly, because it's your son. How dare you, she hissed. Jason is a good man. He would never cheat. He's wearing my ring and telling another woman their feelings never went away, I said. Call it what you like. I call it emotionally cheating. You're being dramatic, she said. No wonder he needs someone who understands him. Right, Diana, the one who always understood him better than anyone. Then he can marry her, I said calmly. You have a good night, Linda. I hung up before she could answer. The silence that followed was a physical thing, heavy, loud. It pressed down on the couch, on the walls, on my chest. I wanted to cry. I didn't. Instead, I did what I do when my brain feels like it's about to spin out of control. I made a decision. I was still meeting Mark tomorrow. Not to spite Jason, not to hurt him, to remind myself that I wasn't the insane one for thinking respect should go both ways. The next morning, the city felt sharper, colder, the kind of bright, washed-out sunlight that makes everything look too honest. I got to the coffee shop a little early. It was near my office, all exposed brick and big windows, and plants that somehow never died. I ordered a latte with shaking hands and sat at a corner table, staring at the door like I was waiting to see a ghost. When Mark walked in, it was both familiar and weird. He looked older, but in a good way. More settled, less boy, more man. Same warm eyes, though. Same easy smile when he spotted me. Haley, he said, arms opening slightly like he wasn't sure if a hug was allowed. I stood, we hugged. It wasn't romantic, it was human. Hey, stranger, I said. We sat. We did the small talk first. Work, family, how he liked being back in the city, how he'd missed real bagels, the kind of conversation where your mouth moves while your brain circles the real thing. He took a sip of his coffee, then tilted his head. You okay? He asked. The question was simple. The way he asked it wasn't. He wasn't fishing for gossip. He was actually looking at me, at my face, not at some script he'd decided in advance. Honestly, I exhaled. Not really. He waited. I'm supposed to be getting married in a few months, I said. And last night my fiancé left to stay with his mom because I told him I was meeting you for coffee today. Mark winced. Ouch, that explains the nervous texts. I blinked. What nervous texts? He smiled faintly. You, double-checking time and location 3 times. You never used to do that. You'd just show up 10 minutes late with a story about traffic and a muffin. That still sounds like me, I said, lips twitching. Yeah, he said softly. It does. I stared at the foam on my latte. He told me I couldn't see you, I said, 6 months ago, when you first reached out. Mark nodded slowly. I figured. He said exes are past. Past means you don't talk. That if I loved him, I'd cut you off. And you did, Mark said. Yeah, I swallowed. I did. So what changed? He asked. I laughed once, humorless. He ran into his ex, I said. The one he dated for 5 years. They grabbed lunch, then more lunches, then dinners. Now she texts him that she misses his smile and that their feelings never really went away. Mark's eyebrows lifted, then pulled together. And that's fine? He asked carefully. According to him, I said, it's very mature and just friends and complete closure. But me having one coffee with you is betrayal. He sat back, shaking his head. That's not a boundary. That's a leash. I blinked hard because my eyes suddenly stung. It's like I've been living in 2 realities, I said. In one, I'm lucky he's chosen me. In the other, I'm slowly disappearing so he doesn't feel threatened. Mark watched me for a long moment. Do you still love him? He asked. Yes, I said without hesitation, but I don't like who I am when I'm with him right now. We talked for almost 2 hours. About the early days of my relationship with Jason, the way he made me feel safe and adored at first. About the subtle shifts, small criticisms, little double standards, jokes that weren't really jokes. Mark didn't bash him. He didn't tell me what to do. He just listened, occasionally asking questions that made me pause. What do you actually want from a partner? Have you told him how this makes you feel, not just what he's doing? If your best friend told you this story, what would you tell her to do? When I finally checked the time, my stomach dropped. I have to go, I said, standing. Apparently coffee with an ex comes with an invisible time limit. Mark stood too. For what it's worth, he said, Nothing about this felt inappropriate. It felt like two people catching up. That's what I thought, I said. But in Jason's world, my intentions don't matter. Only his fears do. We walked outside together. The air smelled like exhaust and fresh bread from the bakery next door. Haley, he said as we reached the corner, you deserve someone who trusts you as much as you trust them. Bare minimum. I thought I had that, I said quietly. Maybe you did, he replied, and maybe he traded it for nostalgia with someone else. I smiled at him, sad and grateful. Thanks for coffee, I said. Anytime, he answered, and I mean that. As a friend, no pressure, no agenda. That last part warmed something cold in my chest. I walked home after work with a knot so tight in my stomach it hurt to breathe. Jason's car was already in the driveway. Of course it was. When I walked in, he was on the couch, arms crossed, eyes on the door like he'd been rehearsing his lines. 4 hours, he said. Hi, I replied, setting my bag down. You were gone for 4 hours, Haley, for coffee. We talked, I said. We lost track of time. What did you talk about? He demanded. Stuff, I said, because I knew how this game worked. No answer would be good enough. Stuff, he repeated, voice dripping with sarcasm. Great. Very specific. Did you talk about your relationship, your past? Did you talk about getting back together? Yes, I said calmly. We talked about our past, the same way you talked to Diana about your past with her. That's not the same thing, he snapped. There it is again, I said softly. The magic phrase that makes anything you do okay and anything I do a betrayal. His eyes flashed. You're twisting this. You know Mark still wants you back. How do you know that? Because he reached out, Jason said. Exes don't just grab coffee unless they want something. Oh, interesting, I said. Because Diana reached out. She sends hearts. She tells you she's thinking about what could have been. By your own logic. She and I have closure, he interrupted. We're processing our history. That's healthy. Is it healthy to tell someone your feelings never went away while you're engaged to someone else? I asked. Because that's what you told her. His face went white. You went through my phone, he whispered. It fell out of your jeans when I was doing your laundry, I said. The notification was right there. I scrolled up because my gut already knew what I'd find. That's a violation of my privacy, he said, voice shaking. I can't believe you'd do that. I can't believe you'd write love letters to your ex while expecting me to cut mine off, I replied. He stood so fast the remote hit the floor. I cannot marry someone like this, he said. Someone who spies on me, twists innocent messages, and then runs to her ex the second she doesn't get her way. I felt something in my chest go very, very still. So what are you saying? I asked. I'm saying, he replied, I need space to decide if this engagement is even salvageable. He grabbed his bag again, like last night, like a dress rehearsal. I'm going back to my mom's, he said. Don't contact me. Okay, I said. He blinked, as if he'd been expecting me to beg, cry, promise to delete every man in my phone. That's all you have to say? He demanded. What do you want me to say? I asked quietly. Don't go see your ex and I won't see mine, because that's not happening. I'm done living under rules that only apply to me. He stared at me like he didn't recognize me. Then he left. This time the picture on the wall didn't fall. I guess even the apartment was getting used to the impact. Jason didn't call, didn't text, not for the rest of the night, not the next morning, not even the day after that. He'd gone full ghost mode, except for one thing. He wasn't silent everywhere, just with me. Because while my phone stayed quiet, his version of the story was already spreading like a virus. The first clue was the call from my best friend Claire around lunchtime the next day. Haley, she said, breathless, no hello. Did you and Jason break up? My fork froze halfway to my mouth. Why? Because his sister just posted some cryptic crap on Facebook about supporting my brother through betrayal and something about exes being snakes. I closed my eyes. Of course. He ran to his mother. His mother ran to the family. The family ran to the internet. And suddenly I wasn't a person anymore. I was a villainous headline. The next call came from my coworker, Megan. So, not to pry, but Jason's cousin messaged me. He said you cheated on him with your ex and disappeared for hours to rekindle old flames. Is that true? I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was ridiculous in a way that could make someone feral. Megan, I said, we had coffee, that's it. She exhaled. That's what I figured. The rumor sounded too dramatic, even for his family. But the calls didn't stop. Friends, coworkers, even one of Jason's groomsmen texting, you messed up big this time. I hope Mark was worth it. I stared at that message until the words blurred. My phone buzzed again, this time from an unknown number. Jason's brother. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Haley? He barked. Do you realize what you've done to my brother? He's in pieces. He's barely slept. I pressed my fingers to my temples. Did he tell you, I said, that he's been seeing Diana behind my back for months? That she tells him she misses him? That they talk about their feelings never going away? That I only agreed to one coffee with Mark after he'd been having entire dinners with her? Silence. Then, that's different. There it was again. Magic phrase. Flexible morality in 4 words. I'm not doing this, I said, voice shaking. Not with you. Not with anyone else who's already decided their version of events. And I hung up. I didn't break, not yet. But the cracks were forming. The vendors started calling 3 days later. I was in the kitchen making tea when the first number popped up. Riverside Gardens, wedding venue. I took a breath, answered. Hi, Haley, the coordinator said gently. We received a cancellation request from your fiancé. We just need to confirm. What? I interrupted. Cancellation? Yes. Jason called this morning. He was very upset. He said the wedding is off, and he asked for a full refund due to infidelity from the bride. My blood turned to ice. I gripped the counter so hard the wood dug into my palms. That's not true, I said, steadying my voice. I did not cheat. Well, she continued carefully, we need both signatures to cancel, and the deposit is non-refundable regardless. I'm fine canceling, I said. I'll sign, and I'll split the deposit loss 50-50. There was a pause. He said you agreed to cover the entire deposit yourself. I almost laughed again. Of course he did. Of course Jason was out there telling the world I was the reason everything fell apart, and that he deserved financial sympathy because he'd been betrayed. Please put in writing, I said, that I am agreeing to split it, not cover it. Anything else he said is false. We'll update the file, she said softly. When I hung up, my hands were shaking. I didn't have time to breathe before the florist called. Then the DJ. Then the photographer. Every single vendor had the same story. Jason crying on the phone, saying she cheated, she destroyed everything, I can't pay anything, she agreed to cover it all. Every time I had to repeat the same sentence. We ended things mutually. I did not cheat. I will pay half, no more. By the 4th call, I realized something horrible. Jason wasn't just rewriting our relationship. He was rewriting me, turning me into a cartoon villain in a story where he was the wounded hero, and people were believing him. I reached my breaking point the day his mother showed up at my work. Security called from the front desk. Haley, there's a woman demanding to see you. Says she's your mother-in-law. She's not, I muttered. I'll be right down. I took the elevator, praying for strength. When the doors opened, Linda was standing there in a floral blouse, eyes blazing, lips pursed tight enough to cut skin. You need to fix this, she snapped the moment she saw me. Fix what? I asked. The vendors, she hissed. The wedding. The damage you've caused. Jason says you're refusing to pay your share and ruining his credit. I offered to split everything, I said, keeping my voice even. He's the one trying to make me pay the full amount. That's because you cheated, she said loud enough that nearby employees turned their heads. I felt heat rise in my face. I didn't cheat, I said firmly. You met your ex for hours, she shot back. After your son spent months having lunches with his ex, I said. After he texted her that their feelings never went away. After he lied about where he was while planning intimate meetups with her. If anything, he emotionally cheated. Her face went red. How dare you accuse my son? How dare he accuse me, I said, of things he's been doing the entire time. Linda sputtered, hands shaking with fury. You're unhinged, she said. No wonder Jason needed comfort from someone who understands him. There it was, the admission. Not spoken directly, but implied. I stared at her, everything going quiet inside me. Linda, I said calmly, you need to leave now. You can't tell me. I turned to security. Please escort her out, I said. The guard stepped forward. Linda's voice rose, shrill and indignant, calling me names as they walked her toward the exit. Employees stared. I kept my spine straight. I didn't cry until I made it back to the bathroom stall where no one could see. That night, after I finally got home, I saw the notification on Instagram. A DM request. From Diana's boyfriend. My stomach tightened as I opened it. Hey, no hard feelings. Diana told me everything. She and Jason are together now. You need to move on. I stared. I typed back. Great, that was fast. His reply came instantly. Not really. They were basically together already. You pushed him away. I clenched my jaw. Funny. He said she was just a friend. You might want to look through their old messages. A long pause. Then, whatever, he chose her, not you. I replied, good luck, you'll need it. And I blocked him. I didn't shake. I didn't cry. I felt numb, like someone had hollowed me out with a spoon. When I got into bed that night, my phone buzzed with a text. Mark, Hey, noticed you've been quiet. You okay? I stared at the message. My chest loosened for the first time all day. Me. Rough day. Everything's unraveling. Mark, do you want to talk? I'm here. No pressure. I closed my eyes. It felt so different from Jason's constant demands, from his rules, from the way he weaponized my love against me. Mark wasn't claiming ownership, wasn't demanding anything, wasn't trying to get me back. He was simply there, and that felt like oxygen. Me, thanks, maybe tomorrow. Mark, whenever you're ready. I turned off my phone, rolled onto my side, and whispered into the dark. I don't think he ever loved me the way I loved him. The truth hurt, but it was finally out. And once spoken, it didn't go back. I didn't hear from Jason for almost a week. But I heard about him. Everywhere. Every angle. Every retelling. Every twisted, self-serving version of the truth. It was like he was Xeroxing himself across the city as a victim, crying on phones, messaging friends, painting himself as the poor, wounded fiancé betrayed by a scheming ex-lover. Meanwhile, I was just trying to breathe, trying to sleep through the night, trying not to crumble every time my phone buzzed. It was a Thursday. Too bright, too hot, too loud, when the first crack in Jason's narrative finally came from somewhere I didn't expect. One of his cousins. A simple text. I need to talk to you, alone. I ignored it at first. I didn't have the energy. But before any truth could reach me through that thread, something much bigger happened. Something that peeled back the whole rotten structure Jason and Diana had built together. It started with a screenshot, posted publicly, by Diana's ex-girlfriend, or rather the woman Diana had been dating quietly for over a year. Her account had maybe 300 followers, but the blast radius was instantaneous. I only found out about it because Claire called me screaming into the phone. Haley, get online right now! What happened? I asked, half afraid, half dead inside. Diana's girlfriend, her real girlfriend, just dropped screenshots of Diana and Jason's messages. The ones from before you two even broke up, the ones where they were planning to get back together. Jason has been cheating emotionally, and maybe more, for months. I sat down, hard. My arms went cold. Claire, I whispered, are you serious? Haley, she tagged everyone. She tagged Jason. She tagged Diana. She tagged half their friend group. She tagged Jason's mom. Oh my God, this is nuclear. My hands shook as I opened Instagram. There it was. The post. A collage of screenshots. Diana. Jason. I can't wait until everything is finally out in the open. I'm tired of hiding what we are. Jason, Diana. I just need Haley to stop freaking out about us. Once she calms down, I'll ease her out of the picture. Diana, Jason, she doesn't deserve you. She never did. You were always mine. My heart kicked painfully. Another screenshot. Jason, I promise we'll be together soon. I miss you so much it hurts. Diana, meet me tonight, you know where. The timestamps were from 2 months before he ever accused me of cheating, long before I had coffee with Mark, long before I'd even suspected anything was wrong. The caption under this post read, "This is why she hasn't been answering me. She's been cheating with a man who claimed he loved his fiancé. They deserve each other. Enjoy your trash fire." Within an hour, the comments section had turned into a war zone. Friends, family, people from college, people who barely knew them, everyone weighing in. I didn't comment. I didn't like it. I didn't even breathe. I just stared at the screen, cold all over, while the image of Jason, my Jason, shattered like a dropped mirror. Then the calls began. First from Claire, then from Megan, then from the cousin who'd texted earlier. Haley, he said, voice cracking. I owe you an apology. We all owe you an apology. I said nothing. I didn't believe you, he continued. Jason told us you were the one cheating, that you'd been planning to leave him, that he was fighting for the relationship. But those screenshots... He exhaled shakily. He's been lying to everyone, for months. I'm so sorry. It's fine, I said automatically. It's not, he insisted. We treated you like garbage. You didn't deserve that. A lump rose in my throat. Thank you, I whispered. But my voice was numb. My heart was numb. Everything was numb. I thought that was the worst of it, until my office phone rang. Haley? The receptionist whispered. There's someone here to see you. My stomach twisted. Who? Another pause. She whispered it like saying the name out loud might summon a demon. Diana. I closed my eyes. Of course. Of course she would come now, after everything had blown up, after her private lies had been torched publicly. I took 3 steadying breaths. Then I went downstairs. She was standing by the lobby windows, arms wrapped around herself, sunglasses on indoors, trying very badly to look composed. When she saw me, her lips trembled. Haley, she said, please, I need to talk. I crossed my arms. What could you possibly have to say to me? Her jaw flexed. I never meant for things to get this bad. Didn't you? I asked quietly. She flinched. We just reconnected, she said. Jason said you two were having problems. He said you didn't love him the way he needed. He said you were cold, distant. That's interesting, I said, because he told me you were just friends. She swallowed. We were, at first. At first, I repeated. You don't understand, she said, her voice shaking. He told me he was confused. He told me he wasn't sure about marrying you. He told me he still loved me. I closed my eyes. Of course he did. He was building bridges to both of us until one of them cracked. I didn't know he was lying to me too, she whispered. I didn't know he was still pretending everything with you was perfect. I didn't know he told you I was the problem. There it was, the rod at the center. Jason hadn't chosen her. He hadn't chosen me. He'd chosen both, in secret, for as long as he could get away with it. And when that collapsed, he chose whatever story made him the victim. You need to leave, I said, voice tight. I can't do this with you. Please, she whispered, reaching out. I came to apologize. I don't want your apology, I said. I want my peace. Go find yours somewhere else. She lowered her hand, nodding through tears. I'm sorry, she said again, softer this time, like she meant it. But I still didn't want it. Not from her. Not about him. Not ever. She left with her shoulders shaking, sunglasses slipping as she wiped at her eyes. I watched the door close behind her. And for the first time since this nightmare started, I felt a tiny sliver of something warm return to my chest. Not forgiveness. Not closure. Just relief. Relief that the truth was out there, whether anyone liked it or not. That evening, as I was settling into the couch with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders, my phone lit up with a message from Mark. Mark, saw the screenshots. You okay? I stared at the text for a long time. Then I typed the truth. Me, no, but I'm trying to be. His reply came instantly. Mark, do you want company? I can bring food or wine or silence. Whatever you need. My throat tightened. Me, just talk for a minute on the phone. I don't want to be alone with my thoughts right now. He called within 10 seconds. When I heard his voice, steady, grounded, warm, I finally exhaled the breath I'd been holding for days. And somewhere deep inside me, the smallest spark flickered. Maybe this wasn't the end of everything. Maybe it was the beginning of something that didn't hurt. Not romantic. Not yet. Just safe. Just honest. Just human. And that was enough. The wedding day came. Or it would have if my life had followed the script I once believed in. Instead of walking down an aisle, wrapped in tulle and hope, I sat in a car with the windows down, the late afternoon sun warming my skin as I parked outside the concert venue where my friends were already waiting. My dress wasn't white, it wasn't silk, it wasn't anything close to the life I had planned. It was a simple black sundress, comfortable, soft, mine. I checked my phone before stepping out. No calls from Jason, no texts, just silence. Good. But the universe wasn't finished with its sixth sense of timing. Because the very next morning, the day after what should have been our reception brunch, I ran into Jason at a coffee shop. Of all places, of all days, of all versions of me he could have encountered. He saw me first. He was standing in line with Diana, their hands intertwined like they'd been rehearsing for this moment. She leaned into him, chin lifted toward me in a subtle, territorial gesture that would have gutted me months ago. But now it just looked sad. Sad that they needed to hold each other tighter at the sight of me. Sad that they thought I wanted him back. Sad that their relationship was built on secrets and crossroads and people they had both betrayed. When Jason met my eyes, he stiffened. His hand tightened on hers. Diana's jaw clenched. I didn't flinch. I didn't look away. I walked to the counter, ordered my latte, opened my laptop, and sat at a table like their existence was as insignificant as background noise. They left within 10 minutes. She tugged his arm. He glanced back twice. Not once did I look up. Not once did I acknowledge him. And not once did I feel a pang of loss. Just freedom. That evening, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I knew before opening it. Jason. The messages came in rapid fire. Really mature, Haley. Showing up where you knew I'd be. Are you stalking us? I can get a restraining order. I laughed. Out loud. In my kitchen, alone, holding a spoonful of cold ice cream. I typed back. Me. It's a public coffee shop, Jason. You don't own the city. Me. Also, I didn't even know you were there. Don't flatter yourself. He responded within seconds. Jason. You're pathetic. Still obsessed. You can't accept that I moved on. Jason. Just leave us alone. Something in me snapped into clarity, like a lens focusing. I typed slowly, carefully, savoring every word. Me. You moved on before we broke up. That's the issue, not me ordering a latte. Me. Be well, Jason, truly. Then I blocked the number. For good this time. No more unblocking, no more peeking, no more giving him space in my head. He could scream into the void without me. A few days later, Mark texted me. Mark, hey, random question. Are you open to the possibility of dating again? Maybe us? If not now, then someday? I stared at the message, heart twisting gently, not with confusion, but with the ache of someone who didn't want to break anything, including herself. So I told him the truth. Me. I like you. I really do. But I need more time to heal. I need to figure out who I am after all this. I don't want to drag old wounds into something new. His reply was instant. Mark, then we wait. Or we don't. Whatever you need. I'm here either way. No pressure, no expectations, just respect. Respect. God, I'd forgotten what that even felt like. A few weeks later, something unexpected happened. Mutual friends, the ones who'd immediately taken Jason's side, began drifting back. Not all at once, not with grand apologies, but with messages like, hey, I heard some things, didn't realize the whole story. Can we talk? I think I got the wrong impression. Some of them I replied to, some of them I didn't. The ones who'd believed Jason instantly, who'd assumed the worst of me without asking a single question. Those people stayed ghosts, and I didn't miss them. In a quiet corner of myself, I finally understood something. Being believed matters. Being asked matters. Being seen matters. And anyone who didn't offer me those things when it counted didn't deserve access to me afterward. The real closure didn't come from Jason's texts, or Diana's tears, or the screenshots, or the ruined wedding plans. It came one random Tuesday when I walked into my apartment, dropped my keys, and realized I was okay. Not healed, not perfect, not magically restored. Just okay. I wasn't checking my phone. I wasn't replaying arguments. I wasn't imagining different endings. I was breathing normally again. Later that night, I sat on my balcony overlooking the city, not with wedding stress, not with heartbreak, not with fear, but with something else. Something lighter, something quieter, something like peace. And when I thought about Jason, the man I once planned to marry, I didn't feel longing, or anger, or grief. I felt gratitude, because if he hadn't broken me the way he did, I never would have learned the boundaries I now protect fiercely. I never would have learned to trust myself over someone else's narrative. I never would have stopped making myself smaller to fit inside someone else's comfort zone. Jason taught me what not to accept. And Diana? She taught me that people don't steal partners. They just amplify what's already rotten. And Mark? He taught me that love doesn't have to demand blindness or sacrifice. It can be patient, gentle, uncomplicated, honest. All the things I want to offer and receive someday. But not today. Not yet. Today I choose myself. Finally. Unequivocally. And that is a beginning far more beautiful than any wedding I could have planned.